Hi everybody, I'm here, Erin. Hi guys. I'm here. I'm going to show you guys how to paint your little sign kit that you just picked up from me today, okay? Excuse this is an old box that I am reusing, but when you open your box, you're going to have a paintbrush, your paints, all your supplies, everything you need, okay? And here's just a little bag. It's actually going to have a scan code that'll take you to this video, and a couple other little supplies that we're going to need for this sign. Some sanding paper, we'll get to that, your stencil, and then obviously your sign itself, okay? So I'm gonna actually take out all this stuff and put it over here, and I'm gonna leave my sign right in this box. So therefore, if I get anything around, it kind of blocks it for you, okay? So for first painting the background, this particular sign is one of these square ones. It has this little part on the back, okay? So we wanna make sure that that part's on top. If you prefer that your boards go horizontal, or I'm sorry, vertical like this, you can go ahead and do that, because at the end when we put a hook on, you can put one here, you can put one there. But if you're gonna go horizontal, just make sure that guy's up on top, okay? You've already chose your paint colors, so you already know what you're doing. I'm gonna do white on the back of this one. I'm gonna grab a paper plate to dab it onto, but you guys can always use it on the top of the box or whatever you guys wanna do, okay? So first you're gonna open up your paint. Take your paintbrush and then dip it right on into your paint like that. Don't go straight onto the board with this much paint on your paintbrush though, because it's very wet, and then all that's going to happen is this is going to be really solid and really wet, okay? So what I like to do is dip it into the paint, kind of dab it off a little bit there, and then you're going to dab it off onto the side. That way I'm breaking up those bristles a little bit, okay? All you're going to do then is just nice and lightly start to go back and forth onto the board like this. Dip it in, dab it off, and back and forth like this. Doing it this way, the paint is nice and light, it's not super wet or anything, but doing it this way is going to give you that more rustic look with the edges, with a little bit of the wood showing through. If you want to make it a more solid look, you're absolutely welcome to do that. You just don't want to make the paint super wet at any point, okay? If you do, you're at home, you can always take a hair dryer and dry it, but we need this paint to be dry before we go on to the next step. So I'm just going to keep filling this in back and forth. Now it is going to go up on the wall, don't forget. So if you want to do the sides, you can obviously do the sides as well. I won't make you sit here and watch me do the sides, but basically you're just going to keep filling this in pretty consistent over this whole board. And don't worry, if you get like a big spot in the center, the way to kind of make that go away is just by adding some more in a couple other spots. And it makes that one solid spot a little bit less noticeable that way, okay? All right, so that's painting the background. That's the first part. Okay, now the sign's all good painted. It's dry. So now what we need to do is sand, okay? Also, obviously, as you guys are going along watching this video, at any point, because I'm kind of actually doing a little bit of work behind the scenes and then coming back. So at any point, feel free to obviously pause it before, you go on to the next step. So at any rate, now it feels a little rough when you feel it. I want it to feel really nice and smooth, so that's what this sandpaper is for. So what you're gonna do is just lightly start to go back and forth. Now, this, you'll feel it when you do it. This right here feels really nice and smooth, and this feels a little rough, okay? So I'm just gonna keep doing that. You can always work in a little bit on the sides, distress those sides, have the wood come out a little bit more. That's really about all that it takes, okay? And like I said, feel free to go in and do more of those edges and stuff if you want. Just gonna brush some of that dust off so that way the stencil will stick down to it, okay? I'm just gonna double check. My little guy is up here now, okay? That's what we're gonna put our hook on. So now it's gonna be time to do the stencil, all right? This is a little bit of a difficult part. What you're gonna do with this is there's 3 layers here to the stencil, okay? There's the white piece on the back, that's the part we're taking off. There's a blue part, which is the stencil itself, and then there's a clear layer that you see, that's the shiny part that's on top of that, okay? So what we're going to do is flip this over, and then you're going to separate over at the edge, just kind of bend it over and peel this white piece off the back. The blue and the clear part that I talked about are still over there. Now, once you fold this over, I want you to keep your hand nice and close to this edge and apply pressure as you're rolling it back like this. My hand is staying nice and close to the edge. I'm not pulling like this, because what happens when you pull is that blue tries to stick onto this white piece. When that happens, what I want you to do is just keep your hands still nice and close on this edge. Don't go underneath here and touch this grid. Hands right here on the edge. All you're gonna do is roll that back forward and push down a little bit harder so it sticks to the clear that's on the other side, and then continue to roll it back. There's another piece. I'm gonna push it down and I'm gonna roll it back. Push it down, roll it back. This is kind of the painful part. Usually the less amount of words, the better off you are. But this whole time, I'm pushing down as I'm rolling this back, okay? So I'm just pushing it down and rolling it back. Okay, I got that part off. Now, I'm just gonna make sure there's no blue on there, there's no blue pieces, all right? If there were, then you could set those off to the side and put them in back on it later, okay? So now what you're gonna do, mine's gonna look upside down to you, but you're gonna flip this over. Be careful it doesn't bend, because this blue is really sticky now. And you're just going to place it down on your board. This blue edge here is not straight, so please don't go off of that. Sorry, I'm just trying to adjust that a little bit for you. You can lift it back up, okay? So what I like to do is just bring it to the edge, kind of drag it down, position it, make sure that I think everything looks nice and straight. Distance, top, bottom, left to right is all about equal. I think it looks good. So now I'm going to smooth this out, okay? You could take a credit card if you want to make sure it's really on there good. Some of these cracks, I just take my fingernails and push down good in them. But once you smooth that out, try and get as many of the bubbles out as you can, all right? And then now we have to get that clear part off. So the same way that we did with that white off the back, we're gonna take the edge of this and then just roll this back. There's a clear right here that I'm holding on to. And you're gonna roll that back. And keep your hand nice and close to the edge. It's important now that this blue stays down nice and flat, because this is what we're gonna be painting, okay? So we're just gonna keep rolling this back. If it starts to come up, you see that little piece is coming up right there? We're gonna hold it down, okay? The less bumps and bubbles, the better. So just keep rolling it back, and then we're good to go. Now you see, it's a nice, smooth, flat surface, no bubbles, all good to go. All right, now, last thing before we get to painting is you're gonna get out your Mod Podge. This is in your kit with you, okay? You're gonna open it up, take one of these sponges, okay? Dip it in, and then I kind of wipe it off a little bit on the side. And then what you're gonna do is anywhere where you have these words, you're gonna take this Mod Podge and put a real thin layer on there, okay? Let me see if I can get it in the light so you guys can see. A real thin coat. I don't want it real white looking where it's sliding around all over the place. This is just gonna help seal it down a little bit. So I'm just taking a little bit and spreading it on. See, like right there, there's a big blob of white. So I'm gonna take that and I'm just gonna spread that out. If you have any big solid shapes, it doesn't really need to be filled in the solid part. It's really just where the edges of the stencils are. On the words, obviously the letters are all the edges. So we're just gonna keep spreading it on, real thin coat. And that's it. So now it doesn't even really look like it's white or anything. It's basically just a clear kind of spot. And that's gonna dry, and then we'll get to painting, okay? So if you guys want to pause, I'm going to pause for a second and get my paint ready, and then we'll jump back in. Okay, now I'm going to show you guys how to paint your signs, all right? So what you're going to be using is the paint colors that you picked out, or that came with the kit. And again, you're going to be using these sponges now, okay? If there's anywhere that you want to get that's a small little portion that this sponge is too big for, what I recommend is actually cutting this sponge in half that way. So then you just have a small little area to paint with, okay? So basically what you're going to do is, generally speaking, you're gonna put 3 coats of paint on your sign here, okay? So that way it gets nice and solid, all the words and everything. But in doing the 3 coats of paint, it's gonna be done simultaneously. So even if you're using different colors for the design that you have, you're gonna start at the top of your sign and work your way down. When you get down to the bottom, everything is gonna have 1 coat of paint. Then you're gonna go back up to the beginning and everything, switching colors, is gonna get a 2nd coat of paint. And then, like I said, generally speaking, the 3rd usually does the trick. The reason is that when we are all said and done, we are going to peel the stencil off while the paint is still wet. So it all needs to be painted around the same time, okay? These are the 3 colors that I'm using for now. And what we're gonna do is basically you're gonna take your sponge and go ahead and dip it right on into that paint. And you can completely cover it. But you guys can see how soaking wet that sponge is. I don't want it that wet. So what you need to do, ooh, that's annoying, dab it off over here onto your board so that now it doesn't even look like it's really a wet sponge. It just looks like it's a black sponge, all right? And then from here, you're just going to lightly dab it onto your board. Dab, 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 dab. All right, so you see that there, it's a nice light thin coat. I can still see that background color and that is completely okay. You're gonna use 3 coats of paint, so you don't need it to be completely solid right now. If you make it solid, it's gonna be way too wet. That said though, when you're taking it along and you see that this is not as solid as that, once the paint starts to run out, you're gonna come over here, you're gonna reload your sponge, and then put it back onto the board, okay? I just skipped over that word leprechaun because I had the black. But this, where you can see how soaking wet that is, that's too much paint, okay? So what you're gonna just keep doing is dabbing it along like this. Get a little bit more black, fill it in, fill it in. Now I'm gonna go back over my green since I skipped over that part. And just nice and lightly like this, okay? I'm gonna finish this up while you guys work on yours. But like I said, I'm gonna finish and I'm gonna do my green. And then before I go on to a 2nd coat of green, or you see, before I'm going on to a 2nd and 3rd coat of black, I'm finishing my green. So everything gets it once, everything gets it twice, everything gets it 3 times. And we'll get back on here when we're there. Okay, so I've just about completed my whole sign. You can still see it's a little bit wet. Another thing I forgot to mention, that as you're dabbing along here, be careful you don't spill over the edges like that, okay? Because now I just got green paint on the side of my sign. I'm going to show you how to fix it, so don't worry, you have a little tool in here. But actually, first, what you guys are going to do is open up your little package. So this is for getting the paint off. It's just an alcohol wipe. And then this is a push pin, and now we're going to use that, okay? So like I said, nice 3 coats. It's good and solid. And then what you're going to do, remember, don't let it dry too much. You're just going to take this and you're going to start pulling the pieces off, okay? You can see it's not coming off in one pretty piece. I just usually say the damage is done, so don't worry about it. You're not going to mess it up. I know it looks really crazy right now, but you didn't mess anything up, okay? All right, so now I've pulled off pretty much everything I can with my fingers. So now what you're going to do is you're going to take the push pin and then basically kind of push down into the stencil material there, and anywhere the blue is, you're just going to kind of pick into it and then lift it up, okay? And kind of pick it in and lift these pieces out. I'm going to go ahead and pause while I do this, all right? But all these inside the A's, the E's, all that thing, just going to kind of push it in there and then lift it up, all right? Some ones are a little harder than the others. All right, so I just finished picking out all my last little pieces. So here's my cute little sign. I actually have some little wood shamrocks that I'm going to be adding onto these, and there's a couple that are going to go up here too, which is super cute. But before I finish that, we have to worry about that little green paint that we got right here, okay? So what we're going to do, open up your alcohol wipe. It legitimately is just a rubbing alcohol wipe. So if you need more than what's on here, then you can always just go grab, you know, a bottle of it and dampen this again or something. But basically all you're gonna do is just nice and lightly rub that off. I don't recommend doing this like around some of the words if there was like some bleeding or anything, because it will just thin the paint and rub it around. So I think it would make the situation worse if it was on a word. It's just gonna spread the paint. But you're basically just going to rub that off as much as you need, as much as you can. I took away a little bit of the white paint there, so the good thing is you guys still have the original background paint in your paintbrush, so you can always dip that in and then touch that little spot up, okay? But then otherwise, you're pretty much good to go. If you wanted to distress this a little bit more, like I said, it's gonna look so cute with the little things on there. If you wanted to distress this a little bit more, you could always take the sandpaper, go over some of the words a little bit. Obviously make sure it's nice and dry. But you can go over some of the words, work on some of those corners again, and whatever, and kind of distress it that way, okay? But otherwise, you're good to go. Last but not least is a little in here is the hook for the back. Hopefully you did it right side up and you're good to go. And just hammer that in, and then you can put it up on the wall, all right? So thank you guys so much for ordering your kit. I hope it came out beautiful. And, you know, definitely let me know if you have any questions. I do parties and custom orders and all sorts of different stuff. So anything you need, just go ahead and reach out. It's livingreclaimed@gmail.com. And that's it. All right. Thanks, guys. Bye.